when you say the truth gap, I just call it a bunch of liars and frauds. I'm just a common sense son of a butcher, and my dad was a blue collar butcher, and he said, call them as you see them. And just government is filled with liars and frauds. And so, the big fraud going on now is a couple of them. Ponzi scheme number one is, of course, Obama has the Fed print $1 trillion a year and then pump it into the stock market, which makes the stock market go up and makes bankers rich and Wall Street guys rich and Goldman Sachs rich and JP Morgan rich and the CEOs, the biggest companies in America rich, and all of them then kick back bribes to Obama, legal bribes, of course, that they call campaign contributions, and he picks up hundreds of millions of dollars. And what does that allow him to do? To brag that the stock market's up, therefore we must be enjoying prosperity.
As a responsible person with growing concerns for your privacy and personal liberty, you want to know where we're headed and what you can do about it. We ask the experts what you need to do to take prudent and responsible action to safeguard your family's wealth and well-being, and what basic first steps will help you to be aware and prepared. ReluctantPreppers.com.
Welcome, Reluctant Preppers. This is your host, Dunnigan Kaiser. We are live at the Liberty Mastermind Symposium in Las Vegas, Nevada. With us today is Wayne Allyn Root, former presidential candidate and 2008 Libertarian vice presidential candidate, author of the Ultimate Obama Survival Guide, and upcoming book, Murder of the Middle Class. Welcome, Wayne Allyn Root. Wayne, a lot of the people who have talked to us are middle-class people who are experiencing pain. Your book recently announced, Murder of the Middle Class, will be coming out this year. It has an intriguing title, and it talks to that gap between what people are experiencing, the pain that they're feeling in their real lives versus the official government statistics that they're being told that everything is okay. Can you talk about that truth gap that's between what people are experiencing, what's actually happening?
Sure. First of all, hi, Dunnigan. Hi to all of your listeners out there. I'm Wayne Allyn Root, and when Dunnigan mentions the murder of the middle class, it is true. That's my next book. I'm busy writing it as we speak right now, as we do this interview. The book deadline is about 3 weeks from now, so I'm almost done with it. I've got about 2/3 done. I want to make sure no one's confused. It'll be out in July. The date as of now, July 15th. The book that's out right now is called The Ultimate Obama Survival Guide. That's one they can get at Amazon. And many of the things you'll find in The Murder of the Middle Class were covered in The Ultimate Obama Survival Guide. This incredible, when you say the truth gap, I just call it a bunch of liars and frauds. I'm just a common sense son of a butcher, and my dad was a blue collar butcher, and he said, call them as you see them. And just government is filled with liars and frauds. And so, the big fraud going on now is a couple of them. Ponzi scheme number one is, of course, Obama has the Fed print $1 trillion a year and then pump it into the stock market, which makes the stock market go up and makes bankers rich and Wall Street guys rich and Goldman Sachs rich and JP Morgan rich and the CEOs, the biggest companies in America rich, and all of them then kick back bribes to Obama, legal bribes, of course, that they call campaign contributions, and he picks up hundreds of millions of dollars. And what does that allow him to do? To brag that the stock market's up, therefore we must be enjoying prosperity. Well, the average American has nothing to do with the stock market. Zero. As a matter of fact, it's a well-known fact that other than IRA accounts, which a lot of Americans automatically have something stock-related in their IRA accounts, but the fact that most small business people used to invest in the stock market, those days are done. There are no small investors in the market anymore. It goes up and down based on billions of day trades from day traders and guys who think they could beat a half of a second and a millisecond, on computer programs, and major hedge funds gambling billions of dollars. There's no small business or middle class people trading the stock market anymore. So they're not getting rich, but they owe the $17 trillion of national debt and $100 trillion plus of national debt plus unfunded liabilities, growing every year by $1 trillion more with the Fed printing all this money. The middle class owes it all back. So if you don't feel yourself getting richer while they're claiming the economy is doing better, it's because we have an economy that's shifted. Let's say I told you, Dunnigan, that the economy was $16 trillion last year, the GDP. But 20 years ago, that GDP would be a lot of small businessmen making money and hiring people and giving them a good living.
Besides, the dollars were bigger back then.
And dollars were better than, the dollar is down by 98% since the year 1913. We've lost 98% of the value. But forget all that for a minute. Let's just say GDP is the same as it was, 5 years ago. Say it was the same. But compared to a person, what if you weighed the same now as 5 years ago, but your stomach's much bigger? Right? That happens all the time. As we get older, our stomachs get bigger. But your weight may not change. It just balances out and moves to a bad place, right? It shifts. Well, the economy has shifted. If you think of the economy as a person, the belly is one thing, the hip is one thing, and maybe your face is thin, but the belly's still big. because 5 years ago, small business was a big part of GDP, and today it's all moved to big business. Walmart makes all the money, and all Walmart's competitors who owned a small pet store and a small grocery store and a small food distributor are out of business. This whole country is heading towards giant companies and big government controlling everything. Let me give you 2 examples, 2 businesses that I've been either involved in or tangentially involved in.
Sure.
Years and years ago, the biggest thing going on in the year 2000 was illegal offshore poker. And there were guys who I met over the years, 'cause I used to go to gaming conferences. There were guys I met who were little small businessmen who used to be bookmakers, say in New York, and they moved to an island in the Caribbean or to Costa Rica, and they started allowing people in America to bet on their gambling sites. These guys were making $10 million, $20 million, $50 million a year. And they had 20 employees. They had no brick or mortar casino, no thousands of employees. And the government comes along, the federal government, and says, you can't do that, and they shut them down. And I have no problem with that. None. Okay, fine. Then they come back a couple of years later, and the biggest casinos, land-based casinos in the world, in Atlantic City and Las Vegas, say, we want online poker and online gambling. But we want only people who have a land-based casino and a license with the state, and now they have to buy a new license for the online gambling. That license will cost $5 million. So no little guy will ever get in it again. We take all the profits.
New guilds, new guild structure.
So explain to me why online poker and online gambling are bad if little guys are making $20 million, but it's perfectly fine if a billionaire in Las Vegas makes $20 million a year, or 50 or 100 million. They're the only guys because they have the lobbyists, they have the lawyers, they have the juice, they have the politicians paid for.
So speaking more little guys, we've talked about the middle class, your book coming up,
Yep.
Murder in the Middle Class. So people are seeing this big gap between the official story versus what they're seeing. Typical example, unemployment.
Yeah.
A lot of people, their younger generation, they're unemployed.
Right.
They can't find jobs.
A lot of government lies. Once again, lies.
But unemployment supposedly solved. We're supposedly in the low single digits.
Again, GDP is supposedly okay too. But in case you didn't know this, all over the world they changed the definition of GDP to make it easier, to make it look much bigger. So they're including things that didn't used to be included. I think intellectual property is now included, and they make these numbers up out of thin air. So now the GDP, last year was $1 billion, now it's $2 billion. We're doing twice as good.
So they're throwing the good things in the basket. Meanwhile, on the inflation side, they're throwing the big things out of the basket.
Right.
Another place that hits the pocketbook of the middle class.
Right.
They're feeling the pinch on higher education costs, completely decoupled from income increases.
Right.
They're seeing gasoline, electricity,
food,
and taxes and food.
Electricity bills huge. I mean, huge. I think the numbers, I believe it's 42% up since the year 2000.
But the official inflation rate is low single digits.
Because none of that is included in the inflation rate. So they took all the things out of the basket that the average person needs to live and pay your bills and survive and send your kids to school and pay the electric bill and put gas in the car and buy food for the family. That's all out of the index that determines inflation. So they claim there is none. Same with GDP. Same with even the deficit. Did you hear lately they keep saying Barack Obama's cut the deficit dramatically? Folks, he cut the deficit because he raised taxes dramatically. So he took money from you, the taxpayer, both payroll taxes and income taxes and Obamacare taxes. So shouldn't he say both? 3 different taxes were raised dramatically. That goes into the pot and that reduces the deficit. He says he did a magic act.
Compared to the inflated GDP that you just described a minute ago. In fact, I've heard that 2 different commentators, these were college students on Fox News in a panel discussion, and they stood up and proudly proclaimed that we don't have a debt problem because the deficit to GDP ratio for the last 4 years is the lowest it's been in the last 4 years. And it's like...
Well, that's not true at all.
But both of those are manipulated figures, as you just described.
But it's not true even with the manipulated figures. The debt to GDP ratio for America has gone, when Obama took over, to 70%, and now it's over 100%. So it's just not true for them to even say that it's down. What I've heard them say is the deficit's down, so he's doing a great job. Well, first of all, most people don't even understand the difference between the debt and the deficit. The debt is what you owe, and the deficit's what you add every year.
Right.
So we owe $17 trillion. So it really doesn't matter if the deficit has been going down. We still owe $17 trillion. So put it in your life. You owe $17,000 to credit card companies, and every year you add $3,000. This year, you're only adding $800 to the $17,000. You're still broke as broke. You're worth nothing. You're going bankrupt.
You're still digging the hole deeper. So that validates people's gut feeling that they're experiencing the pain.
It's much worse.
The middle class experiences that they're getting murdered.
And there are no jobs. Again, you brought up originally, Dunnigan, the unemployment figure. That's the biggest fraud. every time someone drops out forever from looking for a job because the market is so bad, they're counted as no longer being unemployed. So the more people get discouraged and never work again, the better the unemployment looks. So people out there, great economists that I like, John Williams just being one of them, is shadowstats.com. If you go to Zero Hedge, another great website, they'll tell you that the unemployment rate is somewhere between 15 and 22%. No one's quite sure.
And for the younger generation.
Oh, it's massive. Matter of fact, the stat I quoted last night, you heard my speech last night, I believe about 53 or 54% of all college graduates are either unemployed or underemployed. Meaning, it's not just that you don't have a job, it's that you spent $100,000 on a college education and now you're working at Baskin-Robbins. I don't care if you're employed, that's still pretty bad. I count that as bad news.
So we've validated the reality and we've explained the truth gap. So what can an average middle-class person do to try to preserve, besides now, they can get, where can they get, you mentioned shadowstats.com, where else can they get truthful information to preserve their sanity? But secondly, after preserving their sanity, what are a couple steps that they can do to help protect their families?
Well, a place you can go is my website, rootforamerica.com. I certainly think that's a place of sanity. Root, R-O-O-T, for America.com. My books are lots of sanity, The Ultimate Obama Survival Guide, and coming up on July 15th, The Murder of the Middle Class, chock full of information. What can you do? Well, I could just give you one off the top of my head, but it won't help you if you have nothing and you have no job and you're just starving to death, living on food stamps, and you don't have enough just barely to get through the month. You're not going to be able to buy gold. But I keep telling people, if you're middle class or above and you still have a job, or if you own a business and you still have some income coming in, buy gold or silver to protect yourself, because precious metals is the way to protect yourself. In 1913, if you had $1 million in cash, today it's worth $20,000. It went down 98%. If you had the same $1 million in 1913 and you put it in gold, today it's worth $62,250,000. In other words, $62,250,000. That was calculated as of about a month ago. Gold's been up since then, so it's probably like $65 million now. The same stats hold true for 1940, 1950, 1960, 1970, 1980, 1990, and the year 2000. Gold protects you when the government destroys the economy, builds up the debt, destroys the value of the dollar, and takes away your job, hurts your business revenues. Gold is your protector. So that's number one. And again, if you have enough money just to do a few little things, the way to beat Obamacare is to be healthy. Then you never need the system. You never go to the hospital. You never go to a doctor. I'm the only guy who says this. I've heard hundreds of people answer how you beat Obamacare, and I have plenty of answers involving doctors and tort reform and allow yourself, people should be allowed to buy insurance across state lines. But forget all that. The number one thing you could do is buy healthy vitamins, work out every day, eat as organic and healthy as possible, eat as much fruit and vegetables as you can to stay healthy so you're never sick, you never need a doctor. I don't go to doctors. Doctors mean you're in the system. Once you're in the system, you're trapped, and it costs a lot of money under Obamacare. Your insurance is a lot, your copay's a lot, your deductible's a lot. You are in trouble if you have cancer. And a giant organization, the World Health Organization, just released a study that shows that cancer has always been, to me, an epidemic, right? Massive amounts of people have cancer. In the next 20 years, it's going to go up by 57%. Cancer is a tidal wave. By the way, so's diabetes, so's stroke, so's heart disease. But cancer up by 57% worldwide. And they said all people would have to do is eat healthy and exercise every day and stop smoking. Those three things would cut the entire 57% out. So my point is, take vitamins, eat healthy, work out, and you'll live a long life and a healthy life, and you won't have to worry much about Obamacare. I think this is all common sense advice. I pop 100 vitamin pills a day. I have world-class energy, and I'm in 100 different businesses, and I'm doing great even in this Obama economy, and I'm healthy as a horse, and I'm never sick, and I've never had a disease in my life that's anything to worry about. I never even get a day off for a cold. So I'm telling you, most people spend their lives eating fast food, junk food. It's amazing. And then once you are sick, a new study just came out that vitamin C intravenous works far better than chemotherapy and costs a tiny percentage. It's like a penny versus $1. Mm-hmm. So everyone in the world that's getting chemotherapy, the chemotherapy is killing your cancer cells while it kills you, right, and you're going to wind up dead. If you took intravenous vitamin C, there's a good chance you'd wind up alive, but more importantly, it would cost you 1/50th as much.
Another one of our guests, Seth Peretzman, talked about eating healthy by eating local, and that also built a relationship with local farmers, that sort of thing. So fresher local foods are going to help keep you
right. So, no one ever expects that to come from me because I'm the economic guy, I'm the money guy, I'm the businessman, the entrepreneur, the capitalist evangelist, but I'm a health guy. And I'm a firm believer in vitamins, eating healthy, and exercising every day keep the doctor away. And an apple a day keeps the doctor away. That's what everyone should be doing. Then you wouldn't have to worry about whether you ever get into the system, because you won't.
Well, Wayne, thank you so much for taking this time with us. I know your time is short. You've got to get to a panel on this. We're here live at the Liberty Mastermind Symposium at Las Vegas, Nevada. Thanks for taking the time, and our guests will be very delighted to hear this.
Thanks, Dunnigan. Remember, it's root4america.com, and the book is The Ultimate Obama Survival Guide. Thank you. God bless everyone.
Thank you.